But there was another side of that. It was a darker side. And I would call it was the side of spiritual power and abuse. This guy literally, who I trusted like a father, came over with tears and we were crying together. But he was telling me, you're not good enough right now. There's something wrong with you. And I still love you and I still believe in you, but we've got to make some radical changes. And I'm stepping you down from these things. And at the same time, he was telling me and my wife also, we're going to give you guys some counseling because we want you guys to make it, but you're going to have to take a step back.
Welcome to Stories from the Revolution. I'm your host, John White, and the co-founder of LK10.com. On this podcast, we share real-life stories from the front lines of the relational revolution, where people all over the world are rediscovering a simple, relational way of living out church just as Jesus intended. If you're a current or former church leader who's felt restless or wounded in traditional church settings, or if you're longing for deeper community, deeper leadership, and deeper joy, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. What do you do when the very people who introduced you to Jesus later tell you that you're not good enough to follow him? Stephen McGinley found himself in a thriving church community full of enthusiasm, mission, and purpose. But beneath the surface, something darker was growing. A culture of pressure, control, and shame. In today's episode, Stephen shares how God used this painful experience not to crush him, but to awaken him to something better. A way of following Jesus fueled not by fear, but by joy. If you've ever felt crushed by leadership or burdened by expectations, Stephen's story will give you hope.
John White here with Luke 10. And my new friend, Stephen McGinley, who I've just gotten to know a little bit in recent weeks, but he was gracious enough to share a bit of his journey. And so, Stephen, you were, as a lot of us were, in the category of being done with your experience of church in the past. And so if you could sort of explain a bit of your experience in the past, what was that like for you? What was the environment, and what was the pain point that God used to move you out of that context? Sure. I'll be happy to, John. Thank you. Thank you for having me. So I kind of grew up in a traditional background, and then in college, I wandered away from that as far as church goes. And then I had a friend that I met in college who started inviting me to a Bible study around 24 years old, and up in Massachusetts. And I was going through, I guess you would call it sort of like life crises of what do I want to do with my life? And I don't feel prepared for that. And I'm not doing great in relationships either. Really haven't found that special person. So what's going on? And I started asking if God is really there. This guy reached out to me. And after a couple times of turning him down, I went and checked out the Bible Talk, is what they called it. It was a casual Bible study once a week. And I went into this thing and I met like 15 people that all of a sudden became my best friends. They came up, said, wow, we're glad you're here. It gave me a hug. And I noticed at the end of the Bible study that they all had a good time. And it wasn't around alcohol or drugs or anything else. So I kept coming back. And that led me to really studying what the people were teaching and believing in the church. And the result of it was I joined that church, got baptized in April of 1989. And really was passionate about it. So this was a discipling movement. And, there was a lot of joy. There were a lot of young people in their 20s and 30s around Boston, 10,000 people. And I met this, at the same time, this beautiful young woman from a faraway country called Cyprus, who had come over as an exchange student. And she was in the church for 3 years already. So pretty soon, we started dating. And what was interesting is that they were real heavy on discipling and disciple relationships. And they expected that everyone would be paired up with discipleship partners.
and you would meet with them regularly. They would give you advice, and you were expected to take it and you
Right.
would apply it. And so this 24-year-old graduate of college was seeking permission to date this beautiful woman from Cyprus. And they said, sure, go for it. So we started dating in May of 1989. And, the church had grown a lot. They had grown to between 5 and 10,000 people in a short time. And part of that, I think, was that there was an expression of joy and love that came through in the community of like-minded people that were passionate about Jesus and sharing the good news. But there was another side of that. It was a darker side, and I would call it was the side of spiritual power and abuse. And I didn't see it at first, but gradually it emerged. And, the same person that was your discipler who was suggesting these things was also at times quick to rebuke you and really reprimand you. And they would be wondering often about, are you bringing anybody else to church? Are you sharing your faith? How's your evangelism going? So, there was these times where I felt a little bit like, wow, this is pretty heavy handed, and I love most of this, but when they start, threatening, that you're not a very good disciple if you're not bringing people to church, that's a little scary. So this kind of went on for a while, but in a short fashion, one of the guys that had studied with me, who was sort of coming up the ladder of this church, he said, we'd like to see you take a leadership role. So we're going to groom you to be a Bible talk leader. We want you to be the head of your household. I was living with two other guys my age in an apartment. We want you to be the leader of that. And we want you to start coming to these leaders meetings. We think it would be really good. And we want you to disciple these 2 or 3 people. So I was like, wow, this is awesome. I have more responsibility here than I ever had before. This is all good until it wasn't. And that kind of came to a head. As my wife and I started dating, they were watching us and looking at our fruits. Again, are you bringing people to church? Are you studying with people? Are you converting people? And so when they didn't see that happening over a period of 2 or 3 months, they called us on the carpet. And this same guy that studied with me came over one night in tears. And he said, brother, I have to talk to you. Right now, you're causing me a lot of pain and a lot of angst because I don't see you guys really doing the things that you would be expected to do as a strong disciple. And so I'm going to step you down from these roles that you've been involved with. I want you to take a step back and really start to think again about who you are in this church and what your passion is and what you're being called to. And that was really painful. I mean, this guy literally, who I trusted like a father, came over with tears and we were crying together, but he was telling me, you're not good enough right now. There's something wrong with you. And I still love you and I still believe in you, but we've got to make some radical changes. And I'm stepping you down from these things. And at the same time, he was telling me and my wife also, we're going to give you guys some counseling because we want you guys to make it, but you're going to have to take a step back.
Now, were you married at this point? You said your wife, or your
I was not. So we started dating in May,
Okay.
and this was probably about August
Okay.
of that year. So she said, okay, what do we have to do? And they said, well, we're going to get together with you. But in the meantime, here's your first homework assignment. I want you each to write down on the paper 10 things that you'd like to see change in your partner in order for you guys to be healthier, closer together, better disciples. And so we were upset, John. We were kind of sad, like, wow, this is a little bit of a shock. But we're going to trust that it's going to work out. So we each on our own did that homework. That Wednesday night, we came in for midweek service, and I remember we sat down next to each other. And the guy who was leading things was making an announcement. He said, so we're going to shake everything up because this church hasn't been fruitful. The zone hasn't been fruitful. We're not growing. And so we're going to move people around in different Bible studies and different zones. And Tula and I, my wife, was in the same Bible study, and we were getting split up. So I heard that, and I looked at her. She heard that, and we had those homework sheets, so we exchanged them. And I was bracing myself for the changes that she was going to write on that. I could write, "You're not a leader," or whatever.
Yeah.
All I got was, "I love you. I love you. I love you."
Wow. What
And
did you feel at that moment when you read that? What's going on inside of you?
it's hard to put into words. My heart was racing. I was moved, and I was in shock in a good way. I was excited. And at the same time, she looked at me and said, I can't take these changes anymore. I've had enough. I'm leaving this church. I'm going to call my sister in Cyprus and ask her to send me a ticket, and I'm going home."
What do you think? I'm sorry for interrupting you, but what do you think what motivated her to make those statements? I mean, you both have been very involved in this thing. It looks so good. It was Christian. Those are pretty big statements. What do you think moved her to say that?
That's a great question, John. So to take you back a little bit, she had been in that church for about 3 years already. She came over as an exchange student. She was going to school at a local college, Framingham State. And really, she didn't know many people when they reached out to her from this church, and they became best friends and studied, and she came into the church. So she had been around for 3 years. And what I was experiencing that night with the shakeup, she had had that happen with her several times, not necessarily directly with her, although that did happen, but she also saw it happen with her close friends and people that had become like family. And all of a sudden they would say, "I'm not going to be discipling you anymore. You're going to go over and see this person over here." And now that relationship is totally different. And she had just had it.
Wow, powerful. Let me just recap what you've said so far, and then I want to hear how you discovered Luke 10 and how has Luke 10 addressed those situations that you felt in that church. So what I'm hearing is there were a lot of things about the church that were very attractive. There was a high sense of community and relationships, and we're having fun together, high commitment, we're following Jesus, we're on a mission together, all of those things, which drew in lots of, especially young people, I think, college age and just beyond. And it was very motivational. But little by little, you begin to discover that a source of motivation was sort of very top-down, controlling, even abusive at times, in order to motivate you to do what was, quote unquote, right, the right things to do. And so you were feeling things like sadness and shame, and it's little by little, and then you just got to the place, you and your girlfriend, where you just said, "This is not healthy, and we need to leave." Is that a fair summary?
That's very accurate. And the shame and the sadness that I felt, it's hard to put that into words. Close to devastation, when you've got someone that's been building you up, as this man was, and saying, I have a vision for you. I see you as one of David's mighty men. And then he comes over and says, "You're not good enough. You've messed up. And so we're going to have you step back." It's shameful and it's devastating.
Yeah. You got to try harder. You're not trying hard enough. So that was the message, right?
That's the message. Yeah.
Well said. So fast forward a bit, in recent, I don't know how long it's been, you've discovered Luke 10. And what have you found in Luke 10 that kind of addresses those situations? How's Luke 10 different?
That's great. Great question. So, yeah, I started looking around for something last year, around this time, actually maybe March or April. And I had found something online about Luke 10, and it piqued my interest. So took the first step, had the intro call, and then signed up for C101. We started that, I think, in late April. And a couple things I noticed immediately. First of all, there was source material available online in which people like yourself, Kent and Tony, were just putting out there sort of what was going on with this Luke 10 ministry, showing some of the things that were really key in the ministry and sort of the values of the culture. So I got to look at it, and I was able to look at it in a safe way and really kind of get a toe in the water first and realize, like, you know what? These people seem really genuine, transparent, and there's no like greater than idea here that I'm encountering. So I took that step into C101, and that's exactly what the experience was. So feeling safe, feeling like you're connecting with other people and the ground is level. You know, they used to say in that other church, the ground is level at the foot of the cross, but it wasn't. You know, but it is here.
Absolutely.
Good for that.
Talk just a little bit more about source of motivation. You came to believe in the previous church that really, when you peeled everything away, the motivation was, again, shame, duty, try harder, all of those kinds of things. What do you see as sources of motivation in the Luke 10 community?
Wow. So it's interesting because you could look at it from one angle and say, well, they both had the same idea in mind, which is, let's advance the kingdom of God. Let's spread the gospel out there, right? And Jesus was the example. But I think the differences are significant. So with Luke 10, right away, you get this idea that God is prevenient and God is the one that's doing the work. Okay. So, wow, doesn't that take a lot of pressure off?
Let me stop you. People listening to this might not know this word prevenience. If you hang around Luke 10, you're probably going to learn that word. What does prevenient mean?
Yes, that's a good point. Sorry. Prevenient, God is ahead of us doing the work, and he's always the one doing the work first.
Right.
And it's a relief. And that's so true, John. And, you know, but in this other church, it was like God plus you, and you're the one that really has to initiate everything and then just pray that he's going to come along. That's kind of how it was.
Well said.
And then the other piece with this is the other big difference is that there's the understanding that things like joy and attachment in the community is just as important as the purpose and the mission. So, you know, that slogan that's shared sometimes, you know, we move at the speed of attachment. What a great, wise saying, right? Because if we don't keep that healthy attachment, who are we? Are we a people of love?
Yes.
And so when you start to encounter that for real, and there's a certain consistency about it, it's just, you know, you almost feel like, wow, this is true, too good to be true. And then you see other people that have been in there for 5, 10, 15 years, and you're like, well, that says a lot.
Amen. That title of our book, Joy Fueled. What does it mean to be fueled by joy as opposed to duty, obligation, and even shame? So I think you've hit it. Stephen, thank you. That's a very clear explanation. I think that'll be helpful to a lot of people here. Thank you for taking time.
My pleasure, John. Happy to be a part of this.
What a powerful story from Stephen McGinley. Can you feel the weight of what he experienced? The initial joy of genuine community and the heartbreak of seeing that joy corrupted by control and shame. But the good news is this: God didn't leave Stephen in that place of pain. He gently led him out of the old system and into a new kind of community, a joy-fueled family where leadership looks like serving, not controlling. Maybe you've walked a similar road. Maybe you've known the thrill of mission and community, but also the crushing weight of not being enough. If so, Stephen's story reminds us there is a better way. This is the relational revolution, and it's happening right now. If Stephen's story resonated with you, if you found yourself wondering, is there a better way to live out my faith without the shame, without the pressure? I want to personally invite you to take one small step. Here at LK10, we offer something called an intro call. It's a free, no-pressure conversation with one of our team members where you can ask questions, share a bit of your story, and explore whether this joy-fueled way of doing church might be what your heart has been longing for. We work with many people just like Stephen, just like you, who found healing, hope, and a whole new path forward. You don't have to figure it out alone. Go to lk10.com/intro and schedule your intro call today. That's lk10.com/intro. We'd be honored to listen to your story. Thanks for joining me today on Stories from the Revolution. If today's conversation stirred something in you, would you please consider passing it along to someone who needs to hear it? Just tap that share button and send it their way by text, email, or social. Until next time, keep listening, keep loving, and keep leading like Jesus.